Born on the planet of Naboo, the Force-sensitive Sheev Palpatine would soon rise up to become the face of two worlds. One as a Sith Lord under the apprenticeship of Darth Plagueis, and the other as an innocent senator in the Galactic Republic. The predictable Jedi were too oblivious to true identity, and the fact that they were both the same, and they were made to pay with a capitulation of their order. But what if Sidious and Palpatine were two different people? Would the Sith still rise? Would Order 66 still happen? All of that is about to be revealed. A dark hooded figure stood atop a hillside, oblivious to the picturesque surroundings. Taking slow steps down the hill, the figure removed a portion of the hood, allowing the sunlight to radiate upon the skin. It also revealed the Dark Lord of the Sith, Darth Plagueis. His master Tenebrous had sensed that his apprentice would fail to complete his work before his life ended prematurely, but Plagueis would prove him wrong. Flipping onto the ground without so much as a pin drop, the Sith Lord reassumed his role as a well-known banker of the Damask clan, negotiating with a political candidate. Knocking upon the giant gate, a well-dressed aristocrat opened the door, beckoning Damask in, no doubt knowing of Damask's considerable wealth. Entering the mansion, Damask could sense the Force-sensitive man who resided in these walls. He could feel hate and anger towards his family. Damask could not help but smile. Now seated at a table, the Sith Lord began to manipulate the man in front of him, attempting to convince him to let go of his son, having sensed the divide he was causing within the family. The man stepped outside to deliberate his decision, having considered it for months, leaving Plagueis with the son. Plagueis looked into his eyes, seeing the hate and the potential. The young man could see it in Plagueis too, and opened a nearby drawer, revealing several artifacts. Asking Plagueis if he recognized them, Plagueis did, for they were Sith statues. Allowing the son to feel the knowledge and power which could be gained, the son's eyes turned to a hateful yellow. They looked at each other with evil smirks. The father re-entered, the remainder of the family standing defiantly behind him, blasters pulled out, pointing it at Damask. Damask raised his hand in surrender, but prepared for an attack. But before he could react, the son summoned Force lightning from his fingertips, disarming the family and sending them writhing in pain. With the Sith statue imbuing power, the son soon had the family sprawling, the father the first to fall at his fingers. The rest of the family soon followed suit, before the sizzling sound of electricity faded to a silence. Plagueis praised the son for his actions, with a promise to teach control over his powers. The young man bowed to his new master, and was now anointed as Darth Sidious. Little did they know, a young man had witnessed their every move. With his new apprentice secured, Plagueis would now hide in the background, waiting for his moment, whilst he completed his manipulation of the midichlorians. Sidious, meanwhile, began to grow hateful of his master. All thought of his life as a past scholar had been evaporated, his focus on the gaining of Sith knowledge. He knew that his master had been hiding information from him, but needed patience. His time would arrive. Back on his home planet of Naboo, another man had been recently making waves in the political scene. Born from a wealthy family, the man named Sheev Palpatine had worked his way through the political ranks, with his supreme political acumen and charisma, and was now the senator of Naboo. Stepping up to his designated podium in the Galactic Senate, Palpatine felt a great sense of honour, but also slight fear. Looking around him, he could see the faces of those tainted by corruption. He was determined not to fall into that category. Defending his home planet, he would not allow it to be blockaded, as Viceroy Grumray had rumoured to have done. But Chancellor Valorum had other ideas. The lack of cooperation on behalf of the other senators had forced his hand. It was time for the Jedi to intervene in the political machinations of the Senate. The Trade Federation, funded by the Damask Holdings, secretly countered this move, raising a new droid army. Plagueis knew that while Sidious could not establish a political foothold, his life would be safe, but still, he was unable to complete his manipulation of the midichlorians. Nonetheless, he sensed a disturbance in the Force. Now with the knowledge that Grumray had captured the Queen of Naboo, Plagueis knew that the Jedi would mount a rescue. Waiting patiently, he allowed for the Jedi to rescue the Queen, before damaging her ship and forcing them to land on the planet of Tatooine. Plagueis now dispatched Sidious to hunt the Jedi. This will be the beginning of their fall. Now standing atop a sand dune, Sidious took in the desert environment. He could sense a powerful presence in the Force, even more so than his master. Perhaps this was the key to unlock the downfall of the Jedi. Moving towards it, masking his Force presence, his eyes narrowed in anger. He was too late. The one Jedi that Plagueis had warned him of had already reached the boy. The Jedi was Qui-Gon Jinn. Far different from any other Jedi, he could prove to be a thorn in their side, if not eliminated with immediate effect. Jumping into the sandstorm below, Sidious made his move. Using one hand to pull the sprinting boy towards him, he used his other hand to fight Qui-Gon. But the boy was even stronger than he thought, and Sidious's progress was slow. Out of the corner of his eye, Qui-Gon saw the starfighter taking off. Now was his chance. Using the Force to enhance a jump, the temporarily distracted Sidious lost grip of Anakin, allowing Qui-Gon to catch him with the Force and head back to Coruscant. Sidious had failed, for now. Meeting with Senator Palpatine, Queen Amidala has had enough of the attacks and demands more action. Palpatine agrees, and they discuss with firstly Chancellor Valorum, and then the Jedi Council for what to do next. Any sign of peace negotiation was off of the table, so there was only one solution left: war. The Jedi were no longer keepers of the peace, but warriors. With this, Master Dooku was now at a crossroads. Dooku had seen the corruption in the Galactic Senate, and the stasis which the Jedi Order now followed. It was time for him to take a different path from the Jedi Order. Dooku had become the Lost 20th, but instead of joining the Sith, as that would break the rule of two, he would go off on his own. The departure of Dooku shakes the Order. Not only was he a great swordsman, but he was just the strategic mind needed for the war. Nevertheless, the war would begin on Naboo, but Plagueis would not order Sidious or himself onto Naboo. Rather, he would see how the battle played out. The Trade Federation would ultimately be defeated, but that was no matter for Plagueis. The new droid army had proved themselves to be a worthy adversary. Without Sidious, or any other Sith on Naboo, Qui-Gon survives and takes it upon himself to train Anakin. Under the tutelage of Qui-Gon, Anakin has a better hold of his attachments, and without the constant watch of Sidious, he is much closer to the Jedi Order. But this has an adverse effect on Obi-Wan, who following his knighthood, becomes envious of Anakin, as much as he tries to let go of his attachments. Qui-Gon's obsession over the prophecy of the Chosen One had made Obi-Wan's role feel diminished and unwanted. Thus Obi-Wan did what he knew best, making sure he outworked every other knight in the temple. Obi-Wan became isolated, only going on missions he felt would enhance or put test to his knowledge. One particular mission brought Obi-Wan to the planet of Sereno, looking for the missing Master Sifo-Dyas, whom had been on a trade mission. Landing beside the ship he knew to be Dooku's, he could feel the presence of the lost Jedi. Had he changed? Did he now hate the Jedi? There was only one way to find out. Moving towards the palace doors, Obi-Wan was about to knock, but before he could do so, he was greeted by Dooku. Dooku beckoned him in amicably, and to a large dining table, where Master Sifo-Dyas was also seated. Obi-Wan was bemused. Had Master Sifo-Dyas also left the Order, or worse, joined the Sith? The answer turned out to be neither. During his exile, Dooku had been reflecting upon the failings of the Jedi, and how the war could have been prevented. But now the Jedi were in the war, Dooku commissioned a new army of clones, based on a bounty hunter he had found on the moon of Bogdan. Obi-Wan was skeptical. Dealing with bounty hunters was reckless at the best of times. Upon asking about how he was going to finance all of this, Dooku merely waved Obi-Wan off, claiming he had way more than enough, after contributing a lot of his own wealth and negotiating a deal with a third party. Seeing that Obi-Wan was still skeptical, Dooku and Sifo-Dyas guide Obi-Wan to the planet of Kamino, where production had already begun. Obi-Wan is utterly amazed. They had not expected such a large-scale facility. And the clones, they were mighty impressive too. Obi-Wan was able to conclude what he had suspected all along. The Jedi had been one step behind the Sith for quite some time. This was the chance to at least get back on level footing. Now examining the third stage of embryonic development, Obi-Wan saw something which concerned him. An inhibitor chip embedded into the heads of the clones for no apparent reason. Asking Dooku what it was for, Dooku remarked that this was part of the deal with the third party, and that they included these to protect from rogue or defected Jedi. Obi-Wan is still not sure, and asked Nala Se for a copy. Heading back to the docking platform, where Dooku's ship was parked, the three Jedi see another ship blocking their tracks. The Jedi immediately ignited their blades, the feeling of darkness puncturing the air. The door opened with a hiss, and the Jedi looked in expectation, but nobody emerged. Suddenly, from above them, a cloaked figure flew through the air, lightsabers ignited, eyes only intent on killing. Obi-Wan, who had now mastered Ataru, had never seen such speed and was having to work hard to keep pace. But just as he was getting a foothold, the Sith force pushed Obi-Wan into the waters below. With Obi-Wan out of the way, Dooku was forced to work harder, but despite his old age, his Makashi technique remained impeccable, deflecting the Sith Lord's attacks and allowing Sifo-Dyas to go on the offensive. The Sith had had enough of Sifo-Dyas and pushed him into his own ship with a force push, rendering him unconscious. That now left Dooku isolated. The Sith pressed his attack, his speed and power leaving Dooku in a daze as he gave in to the Force, but it was no use, as the Sith disarmed Dooku with his blades and left the Jedi at his mercy. Pointing the end of his lightsaber at Dooku's neck, he moved in for the kill. But from out of nowhere, Obi-Wan came swinging on a cable, kicking the Sith Lord so violently he fell off of the opposing ledge and into the waves below. Helping an injured Dooku and an unconscious Sifo-Dyas, the Jedi escaped with the control chip in their hands, still unsure what it was really for. Back on Coruscant, the Council was surprised to see Dooku, but are quick to examine the chip. It did not take long to put the pieces together. Whoever had been funding Dooku's clones had been behind all of this. It was now time to lure them in. Yoda heads straight to Senator Palpatine's office, a risky proposal upon his mind. Seated opposite the Senator, Yoda proposes to falsely cripple the finances of the Republic to lure the Sith. Palpatine shakes his head in disagreement. Even if this were to work, the long-term consequences could be even more damaging than the Sith. But on the other hand, Palpatine really did want the Sith gone, having been a victim of their work. Palpatine decides to compromise, and allows the Jedi to access classified information into the distribution of money. The Jedi Council keep their plans in utmost secrecy, and place the investigation in the hands of their underworld specialist Terra Sonube. Master Sonube quickly determines that this had far deeper roots than the Jedi had ever thought. From spice smugglers to bounty hunters, everyone was being funded by the Sith. Master Sonube's work was done, and now it was over to Jedi Master Quinlan Vos. Using his psychometry to track down a bounty hunter by the name of Embo, he places a tracking device upon his ship, leading him from the lower levels of Coruscant to the planet of Scipio. Landing on a snow-laden cliff face, Vos pulls out a pair of macro binoculars and sees the bounty hunter conversing with a hooded hologram figure. The figure is exactly the same as the one described by Dooku. Vos immediately contacts the Jedi Council, knowing that this was the place to be. Moving closer in, Vos sees a huge tower, and pulling out his datapad, finds it to be the headquarters of the intergalactic banking clan. The Jedi had already known this, but had dismissed Scipio as a neutral planet. They had obviously been wrong. Vos ignites his blade, aiming to capture Embo for more information, but before he could do so, the cloaked figure swiveled his head slightly, and his eyes bare into the Jedi Master. Vos manages to duck behind a boulder before Embo spotted him, but the Sith Lord already had a grasp upon his neck, and was choking the life out of him. The pain eventually stopped, and he found a disc hurtling towards him with speed. Raising his hands, he is able to stop most of its momentum from slicing his head off. However, from the exhaustion of fending off the Sith Lord, Vos collapsed into unconsciousness, leaving his body to be dragged away. Back in space, Yoda feels concerned aboard the bridge of Obi-Wan's Venator-class Star Destroyer. Master Vos should have reported ages ago. The original plan was to rendezvous above the planet's atmosphere, but all communications have been cut off. Yoda aims to search for the Kifar Master's distinctive force presence, but is nowhere to be found, shrouded by the mask of the dark side. Yoda's ruminations are interrupted by a massive jolting inside the ship. The ship suddenly tilts to an angle, all of the droids sliding towards the bridge end, and the officers all topple over. The Jedi scramble to the hangar and hop into their starfighters, whilst the clones use their grapple hooks to get the gunships along with any officers. Now swiftly descending on the planet below, the Jedi find their own starfighters, encased in some kind of magnetic field, suspended in mid-air. Ejecting their way out, they slide down the icy mountains, before meeting the culprits. Two hooded figures stood side by side and removed their hoods, revealing Darth Plagueis and Darth Sidious. Their faces were stone cold, intent on obliterating the fools standing in their way. Conjuring a blue haze of Sith sorcery, the two Sith leave a trail of mist along the ground, turning the ice into water. The Jedi don't have time to react and submerge into the water below. The Sith take advantage and move the surrounding ice on top of the water, enclosing the Jedi beneath. The Jedi try to cut through with their lightsabers, but the Sith are persistent. Suddenly, the ice is blasted open by cannon fire from above as a new gunship arrives, this one carrying a regiment of Palpatine's personal guards and military officers. The Jedi leap out of the water and back onto solid ground. Sidious and Plagueis ignite their blades and grit their teeth. They had not expected the appearance of Palpatine. Scything their way through the weaker Jedi Masters and Knights, they used the snow to their advantage, creating avalanches which encased the Jedi in snow. Meanwhile, Anakin could only stand as he watched the speed of the Sith in a blur, decapitating his colleagues. He knew he could help, but he had no idea how. Seeing a lightsaber hilt roll into the lake created, Anakin jumps in and summons the lightsaber to his hand. Now equipping two lightsabers, he enhances a leap out of the water with the Force, and splits Plagueis in two, bringing the battlefield to a stunned silence. The Creator, fallen, at the hands of his experiment. Sidious laughed. His hard work had been done for him. Now it was time for his version of fun. Igniting a second blade from his sleeve, Sidious begins to carve into the ground below, and jumps to the top of the mountain. But the Jedi this time are prepared, and jump to Sidious's level. Sidious senses his advantage being taken away and converts the snow into a snowdrift, impeding the progress of the Jedi, before torturing them with white Sith Force lightning. All of the Jedi collapsed to the ground in pain, wincing at this tower of power, right before there was a blaster bolt through the chest of Sidious. Sidious clutched his chest in pain, and looking at his assassin, saw Palpatine. His eyes as cold as the surface. He felt no remorse in killing the Sith, even if he was his brother. Palpatine had never forgotten what his brother and Plagueis had done to his family all those years ago, and at last he had his revenge, a trait which betrayed the morals of the Jedi. At last, the proud house of Palpatine was clean of its vermin, and Naboo had its rightful leadership again. That is it for what if Sidious and Palpatine were different people. Please like this video, and if you're new to this channel and my other channel, subscribe for more tips, and as always, leave a comment on what if you'd like to see next, and how I can improve my videos. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.